What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is a video I've been wanting to make forever, where I basically just go ahead and list every single champion based on how good their possession is on Viego. Now, this isn't going to be a ranking on how good each champion is or how meta they are or anything like that. This is basically, you get the opportunity to play them for 2 to 10 seconds, and how good is this champion when you possess them. You're going to notice a lot of trends on what makes certain champions good or not, but I've definitely set some categories to the side. I will give a brief description on every single champion. So without further ado, let's just get to making the tier list. Alright, so for the first champ, Aatrox, I actually think that Aatrox's possession is very strong, but I'm going to put him in the strong possessions if skilled with champion. This category is basically going to be, this champion is extremely good to possess if you know what you're doing. Because the best possessions in the game are pretty easy to pull off, and basically they'll be good no matter what you do. I think that Aatrox is a champion that you could absolutely fall on your face with, but he's good for many reasons. He has a heal on his passive, he has multiple knockups, he has a dash, and because of all those things, he can be extremely useful. But of course, if you don't really know how to use Aatrox's abilities, it's going to be tough. Ahri, I'm going to put Ahri in good possession. She is very good, obviously, because she has her charm. And, you know, if you land your charm, it's very useful. Other than that, her damage just is kind of whatever. With Ahri, it's kind of reliant on whether or not you hit your charm, so it's a little rough. Plus, she's squishy, and Ahri actually is balanced around the fact that she has mobility with her ult. And obviously, you don't have that mobility when you're taking Ahri's possession. So, in my opinion, she's just good. She's not, like, amazing, but she's not average. She is a good possession, but it does rely on you hitting that charm. Akali is another champion that I would rank at strong possessions if skilled, because Akali is a rather difficult champion, but what makes her so strong is that you take over her body and you have multiple options. You can immediately dash with your E, you have good damage, you know, Akali's got tons of damage. Let's say you jump into the enemy team and you just need to immediately shroud and go invisible. You have the ability to stall. Akali has a ton of uses, but I mean, obviously, if you don't know what you're doing with her, it's going to be a pretty useless possession. In my opinion, she's one of the stronger possessions in the game. It just comes down to, you know, your proficiency on her and if you know what you're doing. Akshan, I'm going to put in niche interactions because Akshan actually does have the ability to revive his teammates, but the way it works on Viego, you can only revive allies that have died after you take over Akshan's possession. So let's say you kill Akshan and then your teammates die, and then you kill the person that killed your teammate, then you can revive them, which is obviously a cool interaction. If I didn't put him in niche interactions, I'd probably put him in the strong possessions of skilled with champion, because Akshan is a very niche champion to begin with. He has that gigantic grapple, which can be totally useful, but if you have no idea, you know, what you're doing in that aspect, it's going to be pretty useless. I'm going to put him in niche interactions though, because obviously he does have that very niche interaction with his revive that can be very powerful, but also can be completely useless depending on how the fight goes. All right. My first best possessions is the cow. Can't milk those, baby, because when you take this possession, it's amazing. I love Alistar's possession. It's one of my favorite. Now, you could say that if you don't know how to do Alistar's combo, he's not good, obviously. But listen, if you don't know how to do Alistar's combo in 2024, you know, let's go to the doctor, check out the tumor. You know, it is what it is. Like, no, stop sniffing glue. At the end of the day, Alistar is not that hard to pull off. He has tons of combos you can do. You know, just the basic WQ is very powerful. You can WQ into ult. I do it all the time. I love it. You could also do something where, you know, like where you take over Alistar's possession, you flash Q, then, you know, W into an ult. That's obviously very strong as well. It really just comes down to whatever you want to do on Alistar. I think his possession is very versatile. He's tanky. You're probably not going to die when you take his body. Tons of CC, tons of setup. Just absolutely fantastic possession. I don't know why Aphelios' sister is on this tier list. Obviously, she's not a possession. Now, sure, she might be bad. Wait, actually? Alright. Amumu. I think Amumu is also... Honestly, I'm also going to probably put him in best possessions. The thing is, Amumu has, you know, a very similar thing to Alistar in the fact that he's tanky and just has what pretty much is going to make all the champions in the best possessions work, which is just lots of CC. If you're tanky and have CC, that is pretty much the most ideal thing for a possession, because basically you just want to be able to grab a body, not immediately die, and then set up yourself for the kill. So Alistar and Amumu serve very similar purposes. I mean, obviously you have to hit the Amumu Q. Listen, guys, you have to play the game. You have to at least hit some skill shots. Amumu's skill shot, you get 2 chances. You're tanky. You do decent damage. You just Q in, E, ult, no problem. And Amumu is very strong, very, very strong. Anivia, I'm going to put in niche interactions. The reason why Anivia is actually pretty decent is because even though Anivia, the champion, is balanced around her ult, and you obviously don't have her ult, she still does have a lot of things that are very useful. You know, she has the Q stun, which is good. She's got her wall, which, you know, if you know what you're doing, can be very useful. But the thing that makes Anivia niche is the fact that you get her egg passive. And, you know, obviously, this can be a good or bad thing. You know, obviously, if you pick up Anivia's body and then get immediately killed, it does stall out the potential to, you know, get revived, or they have to focus your egg in the middle of a team fight, which can be a problem. You know, like, let's say you kill Anivia with literally 1 HP left, you grab her body, immediately die, at least you have the egg. So it's a nice little interaction. Unfortunately, she's not as strong as, you know, the other Revive champ, which I'll talk about way later on in the video. But Anivia is still pretty niche, and I like Anivia a lot. Alright, I'm gonna put Annie in best possessions, which might be a little bit high for her, but I think that Annie is also one of the better mage possessions in the game, mostly because as soon as you take her possession, you immediately have access to her stun, which is just super, super strong. Annie has a lot of bursts, obviously, I'm sure we all know, but what she has that makes her one of the better possessions is the instant CC option. She has a shield and a lot of burst, so you're more than likely not going to get one shot when you take her possession, because, you know, you have the CC and the shield, and obviously you have a lot of damage set up, so you can just do her full combo real quick, stun them, ult, do your combo, and you will more than likely get a guaranteed kill. So I think Annie actually is probably one of the more underrated possessions. Not a lot of people play Annie these days, but I think she is still very strong. All right, our first dog shit possession. Now, Aphelios actually isn't the worst possession in the game, but there are a lot of reasons why Aphelios is not that great of a possession. First off, he's a no mobility ADC, so you're extremely vulnerable when you pick him up. Also, you get access to not only whatever guns he has, which can be a double-edged sword, but you get access to whatever gun the Aphelios was holding when he died. So let's say, you know, take a possession and then you have the green gun, but you're like in melee range, it like pretty much does nothing for you. So more than likely, the Aphelios possession is not going to go well for you. If you kill Aphelios and he has super ideal guns, like he has red and white, he actually can be pretty useful. But in my experience, Aphelios just is not a great possession. He's also been bugged for over a year where you're not able to swap his weapons at early levels when you take his possession. So it's like, you know, there's just a lot of reasons why Aphelios isn't that great. I can't say that he is the absolute worst, but more than likely, you're going to run it down on him. Unless you're like a cracked Aphelios player, which I'm like not bad at him, but I mean, it's just not, he's just not any better than right here. Now, Ashe, I'm going to put in good possessions. I know I just talked shit about Aphelios being a low mobility ADC, but Ashe is a pretty good possession for a lot of reasons. She has a lot of setup after her possession because of her AoE slow, and obviously the slows on her auto attacks, which is great. So when you take over Ashe's body, let's say you take it over in a team fight, and then you're able to actually safely play as her, you can spread your slows onto everybody, you can slow the person you're attacking into an ult, so it's like a guaranteed ult unless they flash. Ashe's possession is great, but also you get access to Hawkshot, which is one of the stronger abilities that you could possibly have on an ADC. So let's say you kill bot lane, you take Ashe's possession, then you can shoot your Hawkshot into the enemy jungle, and also get information on where the enemy jungler is. I do it all the time when I'm versus Ashe. It's very nice. So her possession is actually quite good. All right, Aurelion Sol. I'm actually going to put Aurelion Sol in average. Aurelion Sol's possession isn't bad by any means. The thing with Aurelion Sol, though, even though he has the fly ability, what ends up happening is it's just too slow. Let's say you dive the enemy backline, you kill Aurelion Sol, and then you try to fly away. It's pretty likely that you're just going to get jumped on anyway. Aurelion Sol's E is super useful for setting up your Viego combo, because, you know, like if you can lock them into E and then ult, that's obviously very good. But in my experience, it's a very hit or miss possession. You can get a lot of value out of it. You cannot get that much value out of it. If you're able to kill mid and then fly down to bot lane, that's good, but just in practical use, Aurelion Sol's possession is not that good. Another average possession is going to be Azir. The thing that makes Azir not bad is the fact that he does have mobility. The thing with Azir is you kind of need to know how to stream a shuffle a little bit. If you have no idea how to play Azir, this possession probably would be one of the worst, but I have a little bit of understanding of Azir. At least I am pretty confident in being able to, you know, WEQ, which can be very useful in just setting yourself up for either, you know, like getting out of a fight or getting in and then ulting. The thing with Azir though is you're almost gonna do 0 damage because it's just never worth really to stand in Azir possession, set up your soldiers and then, you know, fight with them, because you have to place all your soldiers to even do any damage. So it's better to just WEQ, ult, and that's that. So his possession can be good, but in reality, you know, you're probably not going to play him all that much. All right, Bard. I'm gonna put Bard in niche interactions. He is a very strong possession in so many different ways. I mean, his stun is obviously useful. He has his movement speed on his W plus the heal, and his portal is incredibly useful. I mean, like, there's so many times I've taken Bard's possession and then just portal through the wall to chase after somebody and then get another kill. I love Bard's possession. It's very, very strong. But what makes it niche is the fact that when you take over his body, it spawns meeps around the map, which even if you're not in Bard's body afterwards, you can still collect the meeps and get the movement speed and XP, which is super, super cool. So you take over Bard's body, then spawn a bunch of meeps, and you know, you can just collect them even if you're not Bard anymore. So that's a really niche interaction. Very, 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 very strong. And, you know, I would put Bard as one of the better possessions if, you know, I didn't put him in niche interactions, but he's more of a niche champion than, you know, one that is just, like, guaranteed to be strong. All right, the next champ is Bel'Veth, and I'm going to put her in best possessions because Bel'Veth pretty much just really has everything you could want in a possession. She has tons of mobility. I mean, she's got obviously 4 directional abilities. She's got a knock-up CC that gives her another dash, on top of the fact that she has her E, which is like a 70% damage reduction, execute. I actually banned Bel'Veth because she's like so broken. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about, you know, how like disgusting she is. But as a possession, she's also very strong because you just have so much to do when you take over her possession. And she's honestly not that difficult either. Like, you don't even have to be very proficient on her. You just take her possession, you dash at someone, try to W knock them up, E into an ult, and you'll probably be pretty safe on her unless, you know, you really screw something up. Next is Blitzcrank. I'm going to put him as a strong possession of skilled with champion. Now, Blitz is not a very complicated champion. You either hit the hook or you don't. But the thing is that all hook champions are probably going to be in the same skill bracket, because if you hit the hook, it's insane. If you hit the hook, it is absolutely incredible for Blitzcrank. I mean, you can make the argument that Blitzcrank's hook is one of the best non-ultimate abilities in the game because it can just be absolutely game-changing if you hit it. So you take over Blitz's body and you hit the hook, it's amazing. The other thing about Blitzcrank that's super good, that might even arguably make him one of the better possessions, is that he has his passive shield that you get access to. So it's almost impossible to die when you take over Blitzcrank's body because you get access to the shield. Plus, you know, he has the movement speed, he has the point-click knock-up if you can get in melee range. So there's a lot going on that's really great about Blitzcrank. But honestly, hitting the hook is what it's all about. I'm going to put Brand in good possessions. With Brand, he has good damage. He has a stun if you can hit it. If you know how to do the combo real quick on Brand, it should be a very good possession. I don't think it's amazing. I mean, you can obviously do some clutch stuff with Brand if you hit a stun at a good distance, or if, you know, you spread your burn to a bunch of different champions. But overall, I think Brand is just a good possession. All right, Braum is another champion that I'm going to put in the best possessions. I'm realizing that I'm putting a lot of supports up here. That's okay. Braum is just one of the better possessions that you can have in the game because you just can set up for yourself super well. On Braum, it's almost impossible to die when you take his possession because you can just immediately throw up your shield, which helps you a lot. You have some mobility to either peel back or jump to your team if they're ahead of you when you take the possession. And obviously the thing that makes Braum really good is his passive, because you can mark somebody and then ult and then stun them, guaranteed, and it's almost a guaranteed kill if you mark them with Braum. I think that Braum is just one of the most fun possessions because you kind of just set yourself up. You know, you mark them with the Braum passive, ult, stun them up, get the kill. It feels so good. And yeah, I just think that it kind of explains itself. Braum is a great possession. Briar is a champ that I would also put at strong possessions if skilled, because Briar, despite the fact that a lot of people think that she's kind of brain dead since she plays herself, she's a champion that's very easy to int on if you don't know what you're doing. However, her possession is incredibly strong. You take over her body, she has a point and click stun, she has a massive heal on her W and her E, and her E is very similar to, you know, to Bel'Veth's, where you're channeling it and you have massive damage reduction. Briar's very, very strong. The thing with Briar that makes her not one of the best possessions is that, you know, obviously the int factor. You can definitely screw something up, or, you know, if you press W and you run on the wrong target and it's like you don't really know what you're doing, that is going to definitely get you killed. However, Briar is still incredibly strong. If you know what you're doing, she will be an S tier champion to possess. Caitlyn, I am going to put in good possessions. In my humble opinion, Caitlyn is one of the most fun champions to possess, because back in the day, I used to play a ton of Caitlyn. I used to play a lot of ADC, and because I used to play a lot of ADC, I learned Caitlyn's combos from FSN Saber. Shout out to that guy. I learned his combos, and I love just trying to flex the muscles of my Caitlyn days, but unfortunately, Caitlyn is still suffering from the fact that she's an ADC. She does have a dash, you know, she has good damage. You can also place all her traps and they will stay even after you leave Caitlyn's possession, which is awesome. Caitlyn's a pretty mid to upper tier possession, in my opinion. Camille, strong possession of skilled. Another one of these. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Camille has almost everything you would want in a possession. She's got a shield, she's got tons of mobility, she's got CC on her E as well, and she's got good damage, her W heals and slows. There's just so much that's good about Camille, but she's a little bit of a skill-based champion. Her E mechanic is a little weird, so if you're not comfortable with it, it might catch you off guard. I'm a big fan of Camille. Alright, Cassiopeia is a champ I'm going to put in average. Now, Cassiopeia has one thing that makes her a good possession, and that is her W. Her W is a super game-changing ability, which basically just grounds anybody who's standing in it. So you can take over her body, throw down her W, but in my experience, it's not really worth it most of the time to play as Cassiopeia. Even if you know what you're doing, even though she's a pretty high skill cap champion, it's just not really worth to spend your time playing as Cass. It's better to just, you know, maybe throw out your W, Q, do a couple of E's, and then just ult. But all in all, you're mostly just going to get an average possession out of her. She doesn't have any mobility, so, you know, you could always get yourself killed, unfortunately. But I think Cassiopeia is definitely average, and that's a good place to put her. Cho'Gath, I'm going to put in best possessions. I think that, you know, he fits the theme of a lot of champions that are up here in the fact that he's tanky. He's got a lot of CC. I mean, he's got an AoE silence, an AoE knockup. You have a lot of setup for yourself. Cho'Gath is a very, very strong champion. Although I would say there's not really anything wrong with Cho'Gath besides, you know, his lack of mobility. However, the multiple AoE CC abilities that you have allows you to set up for whatever you want to do on Viego going forward. So Cho'Gath, very, very nice possession. Corki, I'm going to put him in good possessions. I think Corki is a pretty decent champion right now. He does see a lot more play than he has in maybe the last season, but I like Corki because his W obviously gives him an out as soon as you take over a possession. A lot of marksman-based champions will be very vulnerable when you take over their possession, whereas Corki is able to just W out. Actually, I'm going to move Corki up into niche possessions, because the thing that I really like about Corki is that you press his E and then you ult as Viego, and you still have Corki's E active until the ability runs out, which is really, really nice because Corki's E reduces the resistances, which, you know, obviously if you're playing as Viego, you are also reducing the resistances with Corki's E, and that is really good for doing a lot of damage. So I actually like Corki a lot. I think he's kind of an underrated possession with that niche little interaction, but alright. Darius? Darius is another champ I'm going to put in best possessions. Darius is a champion that is just immediately useful as soon as you pick up his body. Let's say you kill Darius and you're just in the middle of the enemy team. You can hook multiple people potentially. You have a gigantic Q that will heal you a ton if you hit multiple people. And he's also a possession that you can generally He's also a possession that you can genuinely just stay in for a little bit of time. Let's say you're able to just get 5 stacks on Darius. You know, there's no reason to necessarily ult right away if you're playing as Darius. So champions like that, where it can be beneficial for you to just stay in that possession, are very, very strong. Diana is another champion that I'm putting in best possessions. Now listen, guys, I promise not all champions are going to go in best possessions. I know there are a lot in there so far, but for some reason they just really front loaded these champs in the ABCs. Diana is another champion who just has everything you want. She's got mobility, dash, shield, damage. You know, there's just a lot to love about Diana. You can pretty much get off all of Diana's damage almost instantly outside of a possession. You take her body, you EQ onto a carry, nearly one-shot them, finish off with Viego, and you have your possession. And it's very hard to die on Diana because, you know, you have the W shield that is pretty significant. So it's just, there's not a lot wrong with Diana. Draven is gonna go in niche interactions. So Draven is a champion that I love to possess for one very simple reason, and that is because he can cash out. Now, the way it works is, obviously, since you have to kill Draven in order to take over his body, he loses 75% of his stacks, but that means that he still has 25% of his stacks left for you to cash out. So you take over his body. If you do happen to get a kill while possessing Draven, you will get extra gold, which is obviously very nice, cool, and wonderful. It feels great when it happens. He's also a decently strong possession because, you know, you have your mobility on his W that gives you attack speed and movement speed, and his E is a very strong setup tool for, you know, Eing and then immediately ulting on Viego. So I like Draven a lot. The niche interaction of the gold makes him really cool, though. I'm a big fan of him. Alright, Dr. Mundo, another champion that is a top tier possession, because when you take over his body, you almost are guaranteed to live. When you take over his body, you can't be CC'd right away because of your passive. You have your W, which gives you the opportunity to heal up if people are attacking you, and you're just super tanky. The thing is that you will just take over his body, you will try to throw your cleavers, slow somebody, maybe beat up on them a little bit, and then ult, and it's almost like a guaranteed kill. Every time I've possessed Mundo, I've been a huge fan. Most tanks, when you take over their body, it is going to be very, very useful because, you know, it's just like, if you take over a possession, you have CC, you can't be immediately killed, you're probably going to make something happen. Dr. Mundo is no exception. Obviously, he doesn't have mobility, but he does have a cleaver that you can spam that slows people, and, you know, lots of other things that make him good. So, Echo, also a great possession if you're skilled with him. In my opinion, Echo actually has a very high skill cap. I think the champ's bullshit, but he is very strong. His AoE stun is something that can obviously be a game changer if you place it well. He has his passive, which if you hit all 3 stacks, just gives you a ton of mobility and movement speed. He has lots of burst. He has mobility on his E, which gives him a dash. So there's a lot that's good about him. It is very easy to fall on your face when playing Echo and just completely screw it up. But if you know what you're doing, if you're any good at Echo, he is a very great possession. Elise is an interesting champion. I'm going to put her in niche interactions for the sole purpose of you basically get whatever form she dies in. Because of that, how good her possession is varies pretty highly. Her ranged form is good if you need to set up for your team because you can obviously hit a ranged stun that, you know, helps set up for your team. Her spider form is great if you are diving onto Elise, you kill Elise, and then you can repel immediately, which buys time for, you know, people to help you in a team fight. She is good in both her forms. They both have their own niche little interactions. I'm going to put Evelynn in good possessions. The reason I'm only going to put her in good and not higher is because she's not immediately useful when you take over her body. If you're able to get your charm on somebody and then immediately go to burst them. The other thing that's cool about Evelynn is that you can go invisible. Obviously, you need to get out of combat and let yourself go invisible so you can heal off of that, which, you know, can have its own value. But with Evelynn, I think that she has a lot of times where you take over her possession and you just don't really do anything. And then there's sometimes you take over her possession and it's incredibly useful. You know, it just really depends on what happens when you take over her possession. Okay, Ezreal, I'm going to put him in strong possessions if skilled. The reason I'm going to put him up here is because In my opinion, Ezreal is probably the strongest ADC possession you can get. Actually, maybe the second strongest. I'll talk about the other one later on. But Ezreal's super good because his E, just immediately gives you value. You can either E in to continue fighting or E out if you're in, if you're in a tough situation. Also, Ezreal's a champion that you can actually play for quite a bit because, you take over a possession, you can poke a little from a range, you have the option to just be super aggressive or get out, like I said. I think he's probably one of the most versatile ADC champs. The thing is you do need to be comfortable on his combo. You don't want to accidentally E in on Ezreal and get yourself killed, which, plenty of my Ezreals in rank do that, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to be that guy. So, Ezreal, very strong, but you need to make sure you know what you're doing, and you need to make sure you're confident in whether to E in or E out. Fiddlesticks, I'm going to put in a good possession. I think Fiddlesticks' possession just basically comes down to you take over his body, you press your point and click fear on whoever you want to kill, and then you ult, and that's it. You're probably not going to do much more as Fiddlesticks unless you have to. I think that a lot of the time you're not going to want to sit there and W and full channel your suck unless you're killing Fiddlesticks before level 6 and you're forced to play as him. Even his silence is something that you're not going to press every time. I would say 80% of my possessions on Fiddle just consist of me taking his body, pressing my point and click fear, and then ulting immediately, which is still a very good thing. I mean, point and click CC is amazing, especially on Viego. Fiora, very, very strong possession if skilled. Honestly, one of the best. Because I know I'm sounding like a broken record out here, but Fiora just has everything you need. She's got a dash, she's got damage, she's got her parry, which is really where a lot of the skill cap comes in. I mean, if you can take over Fiora's possession and hit a nasty parry on somebody in front of you, you're probably going to win the fight, you're probably going to kill them. And because of that, Fiora is definitely a very strong possession. But you have to be skilled with her, you have to be confident and going in, and you have to, you have to be on that Adderall in order to hit the W, so... Fizz is a champion that I'm going to put in the best possessions. I think Fizz speaks for itself. Fizz, his E is maybe one of the better non-ultimate abilities in the game because it just makes you untargetable. It allows you to dash in, dash out. You also have another dash on your Q that allows you to stick on targets and tons of burst. There's so many times where I just barely kill Fizz, take over his body, and then am able to carry the team fight because I use his E to dive onto the backline, get another kill with my ult. And honestly, even though Fizz has some skill cap, in all honesty, most of you can probably pull off anything you need to do with Fizz when you take over his possession. Alright, Galio. I'm going to put Galio also in best possessions. I'm beginning to realize there's a lot of champions that are pretty damn good to possess as Viego. But regardless, Galio is great for many, many, many reasons. One of the reasons that is my absolute favorite is his shield that you get off of his W. You actually get to keep his shield after you leave Galio's possession, at least until it gets depleted. So you get an extra little magic shield, which, doesn't really matter that much. It's just a cool little thing. Galio's got AoE CC on his W. He's got a dash plus knockup on his E. His damage is good. His combo's easy. It's really hard to fuck up Galio. GP, I will put in good. Now, he is a champion that you could say is a strong possession if you're skilled. However, on GP, you don't need to do anything other than auto Q and potentially just use your W to heal yourself. You can use barrels. And listen, I play with ego, okay? When I take a possession, I want to play the champion that I possess. That's why I play Viego. I want to kill somebody and then play their champion better than they play it. That is what I want to do. Unfortunately, with GP, it's just really not worth to take over his body, sit there, place your barrels, and try to kill someone. Really, if you use his possession a lot more simply, you activate his auto attack passive, which is the true damage burn. You shoot your gun, which will probably one-shot an ADC, and then you just use your W to get out of CC or heal yourself. You're gonna get a good possession. Garen, I'm gonna put him in one of the best possessions. Now, the thing with Garen is, honestly, it's pretty obvious what makes him good. He has a point-click silence that also gives him movement speed. His W reduces his tenacity a ton and gives you a shield, so it's almost impossible to die when you take over Garen's body. And basically, you can just do the hardest combo of the game, which is run up to somebody with Q on, auto-attack them, and spin on them. And then, when you're done with your spin, you can ult. That is basically all you gotta do on Garen. Alright, I'm gonna put Gnar in good possessions. The thing is, even if you kill Gnar and Mega Gnar, you still get Mini Gnar when you take over his body. So, for the most part, You're never gonna hit Mega. I don't think I've ever even hit Mega Gnar a single time in his possession. I don't even know if it's possible, to be honest. Someone in the comments tell me if it is possible to hit Mega Gnar in a possession. Regardless, though, he is still a pretty decent possession because he's got his E, which, you know, allows him to have good mobility, and especially if you like jump on someone's head, you get a double jump, which is great. He has a slow on his Q, and his 3 auto passive gives you movement speed, which, you know, can be useful in a lot of different ways. So Gnar is a good possession. Unfortunately, no Mega. All right, it's Bomba time, and let's just be honest, it is hard to put him anywhere other than the best possessions. I mean, you can just look at the trend of every champion that's up here. He's got mobility, he's got damage, he's got CC, he's got all the things you need. He's got self-healing. It is a very, very strong possession. And also, if you know what you're doing, you do the WE flash Bomba combo. And I think that Gragas, because of that, is one of the best possessions. Graves, I'm going to put Graves as a good possession. I don't really have any problem with Graves whatsoever. I don't think he is necessarily as good as a lot of the possessions in this list, but he's not average. I don't think he's as bad as like Aurelion Sol or Azir, especially if you know how to do the auto cancel with Graves' E. You can take over a body, and if he's fed, you can honestly instantly one-shot somebody, but you do need to know the combo a little bit. However, even if you are a skilled Graves player, I don't think he's as good as, you know, like Aatrox or Akali or Blitzcrank. I think he's just a good, solid possession. I don't think it's anything crazy or out of this world, but, you know, obviously you have his W, which is one of the most broken, disgusting abilities in the game, which is his smokescreen. I hate the champion across the board, but as a possession, he's quite good. Gwen is a champion that's pretty niche because even though you can decide to play as Gwen, her W is so strong and gives you value even when you leave Gwen's possession that I think that she probably belongs in niche interactions. If you just use her W and then like immediately ult with Viego, your W will follow you the same way it would like move as it were if you were Gwen. So Gwen's W is obviously one of the strongest abilities in the game. Gwen is immune, we all know. So having Gwen's W as Viego makes Viego immune. Very strong interaction, very strong possession. Alright, Hecarim is one of the stronger possessions of the game as well. There's 2 things that make Hecarim super strong as a possession. His E, which gives him movement speed that allows you to just chase down the next kill, and his W, which gives you a ton of healing. And the reason why I really like Hecarim is because you can press Hecarim W and then ult as Viego, and then, you know, you still get the value out of Hecarim's heal while also playing as Viego, which is very, very strong. So he's great for chasing down opponents after you take his possession, and his W gives you a lot of sustain and a lot of strength even if you stop playing as Hecarim and just activate the W and go back to Viego. Alright, Heimerdinger. Now this champion is niche incarnate. For the most part, Heimerdinger isn't that strong of a possession, but I'm going to put him in niche interactions because, honestly, I love playing as Heimerdinger. The thing I love about Heimerdinger is that his turrets stay even after you leave Heimerdinger's possession. So, you know, there's a lot of fun little things you can do where you can just drop a bunch of turrets in a bush, and then you leave Heimerdinger's possession, and then you just attack people in your turrets when you can. They won't do a lot of damage because they don't scale off AD, but honestly, it's fun. Illaoi's a pretty good possession. There's not a ton going for Illaoi besides the fact that she is just tanky. Illaoi is a champion that really needs to play around her tentacles, and if you don't have any tentacles spawned, or you don't have your ult, which obviously you don't, Illaoi's value is a lot less. However, Illaoi's E is still super strong. Like, you pick up Illaoi's body, you throw your E, and obviously that's going to be a very detrimental thing to whoever you hit that on. So she is still a pretty good possession. She's also tanky, has a little small dash with her W. So there are things to love about Illaoi. However, she's not anything too incredible. Alright, Irelia. Now, Irelia is maybe in my top 5 favorite possessions, mostly just because it just feels so good if you pull something awesome off. Irelia is probably one of the harder champions in the game, at least top 10 for sure. However, she also is a very strong possession because her Q, if you are able to, you know, kill a bunch of minions, heals you a ton. She has lots of mobility. She has a W that has massive damage reduction. She's got a micro stun that, you know, allows you to, you know, dash multiple times. She is very, very strong if you are good at her. And honestly, let's not kid ourselves. Most of us aren't that good at her. I'm probably not that good at her, but you know what? I am still gonna try to do Irelia shit every single time I take her possessions. And that is just the fun of Viego. You know what I mean? Like, that is what playing Viego is all about. Ivern is a champion that I will put in strong possessions of skilled. Now, the thing with Ivern is he's not actually a difficult champion, but he is a very unique champion. And a lot of people have no idea what they're doing on Ivern, and they'll probably either just shield themselves and ult, or maybe like throw their Q out. But you can actually mess around with Ivern quite a lot when you take his possession. Obviously, his Q is very, very strong because not only does it root them, but it also allows you to dash into them. And there's fun little things you can do where you can throw your Q on Ivern, you hit it, you shield yourself, take the Q, and then ult whoever you hit while you're flying towards them. It looks pretty sick, it feels good. You can also mess around with the bushes, like you kill Ivern, you set up bushes for your team so that you can like keep sieging a turret, or maybe play for an objective. So there's little intricacies that you can mess with when it comes to Ivern. So I actually do like Ivern quite a lot. Jenna's honestly a pretty strong possession. Jenna's a very, very popular champion right now. She's played a ton. She's one of the most popular enchanters, and she's also very strong. But despite her current strength, she has a lot of things that you would really like in a possession. She's got a shield that also gives you AD. So if you basically just want to take over Jenna's body, shield yourself, and then ult, that's perfectly fine. She's got a slow that can help set up further abilities that you want to use. And if you're decent with Janna's tornado, you can actually do some really sick things. One of my favorite things to do on Janna is to prep her tornado and then ult, so that they kind of forget about the tornado, and then if I planned it properly, the tornado hits them, and then, you know, they, you know, I get spam pinged by my team because they thought it was sexy, and honestly, it was. But yeah, there's definitely some cool things you can do with Jenna. I'm gonna put Jarvan as one of the best possessions. The thing with Jarvan is he's got his classic EQ combo, which is one of the stronger engage tools in the game. He has a shield that also slows, that's great. His E also increases his attack speed and everyone else's attack speed around. So basically you can just EQ W into a Viego ult, and it's just like one of the easiest combos in the game. Jarvan's incredibly strong. You can use Jarvan's EQ to get in, you can use it to get out, you can do whatever you need to do. Jarvan's a very, very strong champion to just take over and make stuff happen. So I'm a big fan of Jarvan. He's, you know, he fits a lot of the themes of the champions that are up here. And really nothing wrong with Jarvan at all. I'm gonna put Jax as niche interactions because Jax is a very strong possession in the sense that you could just do his classic combo of just counter strike, jump on a target, stun them. But the other thing you can do on Jax is you can press counter strike and then ult as Viego, and your counter strike will still be going on. So let's say somebody is too far for you to jump on them as Jax. What you can do is you can counter strike, then you can ult, and then when your counter strike runs out, it'll stun them, even if you are back to Viego. So, all right, so Jace is an interesting one. Just like all the other shape-shifting champions, he has two wildly different forms, one of which is kind of bad, and one of which is very, very good. I would say Jace's cannon form is pretty average. Honestly, like, you can get a good EQ off, or you can, you know, use his W to get a bunch of auto attacks off. However, I just don't think it's, like, anything too special. It's kind of similar to Cassiopeia in the sense that, like, you can use his abilities, but, like, you don't really want to stay in this form very long. He doesn't have, like, a lot of CC. I guess, like, the movement speed on his acceleration gate is pretty decent, but his hammer form is really, really insane. Jace's hammer form honestly can completely one-shot somebody if you're right on top of them. Like, there's been a bunch of times I've taken over Jace's hammer form and one-shot in ADC. Plus, Jace's E that knocks champions away is very, very valuable as well. One of my favorite things to do is to, you know, jump on somebody with hammer form, E them away, and then ult on top of them while they're flying back. That is one of my favorite things to do. And because of that, I would say we'll put him in niche interactions because just like Elise, you know, it really just depends on what form you get. All right, Jhin. I'm going to put Jhin at good possessions. He isn't a mobile ADC, but he has his traps and his root, which are very good. a lot of the time you're probably not going to play as Jhin long enough to force shot. But, you know, obviously if it is a situation where force shot is, you know, worth playing for, like let's say you kill a Jhin that has like 15 kills, you know, you might want to play Jhin for a little while. You might want to get that force shot off, but you don't really need to. The thing with Jin's possession is you just maybe place a trap, try to hit your root, and then just go back to Viego form and follow up. But because Jhin does have a long range CC ability and traps and potentially some good damage if you want to play as him, I think Jhin is a nice good possession. And honestly, Jinx, exact same reasons. In fact, I'm pretty sure they might actually genuinely be good for the same reasons. If you happen to get a kill or an objective while you're Jinx, you get excited and get her movement speed and attack speed, and then you can ult back to Viego and still have a brief moment of, you know, the get excited passive. So there's a lot of fun little things you can do with Jinx. I think she's a little bit better than Jhin, but they're honestly pretty similar in terms of, you know, what makes them strong. Alright, Kai'Sa, I'm going to put her in strong possessions if skilled with champ. I think that Kai'Sa, depending on what abilities are evolved, is a very, very nice and insane champion to possess, because unlike a lot of ADCs, you take her possession, and if her E is evolved, you can just go immediately invisible, so you can reposition, you likely won't get immediately one shot, and then, you know, once your E is done channeling, then you can honestly play as Kai'Sa for quite a bit. Kai'Sa's an ADC that if you're good, you're able to stay kind of safe and play nicely. If she's AP, you can just like shoot your W a couple times from a distance, or if you know she's got her Q upgrade, you can kind of fight more close range. I definitely always get a lot of value out of Kai'Sa's possession. Now Kalista, here's the thing with Kalista. I actually think I'm going to put her in strong possessions if skilled as well. Now Kalista is genuinely probably one of the hardest ADCs, maybe second hardest, maybe Zeri's a little harder, it's hard to say. She is one of the harder ADCs in the game to play, but she does have a lot of strengths because her mobility is almost second to none when it comes to ADCs. If you take over Kalista's body, you can just jump around to safety, and if you know how to kite on her, if you know how to play Kalista, you can get a ton of value out of it. I actually have a couple clips that I posted in shorts not long ago where I took over Kalista's possession and definitely cooked, and that convinced me in my mind that she was a lot stronger than I had previously thought. And it does make a lot of sense. The thing with Kalista, though, is it's very, very easy to int if you don't know what you're doing. So, you know, just like any of the ADCs up here, like even Ezreal, Kai'Sa, and Kalista, it is very, very easy to accidentally run it down. But if you know what you're doing, if you're skilled at Kalista, you will actually get a very strong possession out of her. Alright, I'm gonna put Karma in niche interactions, mostly just because of her W. But the thing that you do with Karma that makes her super strong is you shield yourself for movement speed, you press W on the target that you want to kill, and then you ult on top of them. So even if they flash, your W will continue on through Viego form and root them. So Karma's W stays tethered even if you're not playing Karma. Because of the root, you get a ton of value, and it's honestly very hard for people to get away from you if you do it the way that I just suggested, because you have movement speed to get on top of them, and then you ult to make sure that they can't flash away, and then they get rooted, and then guaranteed killed. Alright, Karthus, I'm throwing in niche interactions. Now, this may be pretty obvious, but Karthus's possession is a very tricky one, because the thing with Karthus is when you kill him, he obviously goes into his passive, where he doesn't die right away. And in order to go get his possession, you basically have to run through his passive into it to get it. And what's going to happen is, more than likely, you're also going to die, because you took a lot of damage going for the possession. And then, you know, if you do happen to get the possession, well, now you're just a squishy Karthus on top of a dead Karthus, which is very, very interesting and fun. The thing about it, though, is dying on Karthus is obviously not that bad of a thing. So dive bombing Karthus in the Viego versus Karthus matchup is something that you often do. And then you take his possession, and then you die in the middle of the team fight, and, you know, hopefully you can make a difference in his passive. Alright, now Kassadin. I actually think Kassadin is a very average, almost bad possession, but not quite. He has a very average possession because because pretty much Kassadin's entire strength is put into his ultimate. I mean, the reason why you think Kassadin is so broken at level 16 is because when he gets level 3 ultimate, he pretty much can one-shot you with a 1.5 second cooldown dash, but obviously as Viego, you don't get that. You get his standard abilities, but his standard abilities aren't that bad either. His Q obviously can interrupt channels and give you a magic shield. And if you're in melee range, you have an AoE slow that has a nice little range. Definitely up here with strong possessions of skilled. Katarina is one of the possessions that I would honestly try to play all the way through. Katarina's resets are low-key stronger than Viego's resets sometimes, so if you know what you're doing, you can absolutely slaughter a teamfight with Katarina, especially if she's fed. Fun fact, I went through a brief Katarina era where I played her a ton, and then I had a clip where I got a pentakill. I posted that clip on Instagram, and the US Army said that my play was the bomb. I don't know why they said that, but you know what? All I gotta say is my Katarina gameplay is US Army endorsed. That's all I'm gonna say. Alright, Kale's possession, definitely average. Now, if we're talking pre-6 Kale, bad. If we're talking pre-11 Kale, average. If we're talking post-16 Kale, we can maybe even go up to good to best. So I'm just gonna put her at average because it really just depends on what stage of the game you take over Kale. Even after level 11, there's not really like much reason to pick up Kale's body compared to like other ADCs. Obviously, if she's in melee form, there's not really much value that you get out of Kale. Just a very average possession. Kayn, I'm gonna put as one of the best possessions. It doesn't matter what form of Kayn you get; they're both great. The thing with Kayn that makes him one of the best possessions is just simply his E. The ability to go through walls is pretty much the only reason why Kayn is even a viable champion to begin with. It is one of the craziest, most broken abilities in the game, just straight up. Having access to that allows you to do so much. It allows you to chase after kills, allows you to be passive. The other thing that you can do that's really fun is if you press E right before you transform back into Viego, you can just run through walls as Viego. It looks goofy as hell, but it is something that I have genuinely gotten value out of, and because of that, Kayn is very useful. Obviously, red and blue have different playstyles, but they're both great. Nothing really wrong with Kayn whatsoever. I'll put Kennen as a good possession. Kennen's kind of a weird champion where he's a very ult-reliant champion, and obviously you don't have access to his ult as Viego, but his E gives him a lot of movement speed that allows you to either run away or chase after people, and then if you E on top of somebody, WQ, you can stun them, which you can use the stun to combo into your ult, which is, you know, obviously a trend with a lot of champions with CC. As it is, I think Kennen is a pretty good possession. Not great, but definitely good. Kha'Zix, another good possession. Kha'Zix is a great assassin because he has his E, which allows him to, you know, chase after targets. So you kill Kha'Zix, you can jump after a squishy, get your combo off, then ult, and you'll more than likely one-shot somebody. Especially if Kha'Zix evolves his W. Can be pretty vulnerable if you jump in. However, his possession, very good. Tons of damage. His E gives you mobility. There's a lot to love with Kha'Zix's possession. Kindred, I'm going to put in strong. Kindred is just an absolutely abusive champion, just probably one of my least favorite champions to play against, but if I do have to play against Kindred, I have to admit her possession is quite good, because especially if she has a lot of stacks, you're able to just go toe-to-toe with most champions of the game. You can use your Q to chase after people, you have an E slow execute. Honestly, Kindred's one of those champions where you take the possession, and you're probably going to play Kindred for at least 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how well things are going. Especially if the Kindred is fed, you'll probably want to stick as Kindred for quite some time. So, Kindred, great possession. Obviously, you need to be confident in knowing what you're doing. If you're going to take up possession and use the champion for more than just simply an ult reset, you're going to need to know what you're doing. You're going to need to use multiple combos, multiple rotations of abilities, and Kindred is definitely a champ that you'll probably do that with. All right, I'm going to put Kled in niche interactions because there is a really weird interaction with Kled where every time you take his possession, you're forced to remount before you can do anything. which is definitely weird, and I don't know if that's a bug, but it's never been fixed, so I'm just gonna imagine that it's a feature. Classic Viego Riot Games technology there. I will say that Kled is one of the better possessions, genuinely, because it's just so easy for you to jump on somebody and just stick on them, because you have 2 dashes on top of them, you have a Q that tethers to them and yanks them forward, and a lot of burst, on top of the fact that it's really hard to die as Kled, because obviously if you get knocked off Scarl, you become untargetable for a little bit. It allows you to tower dive. There's just a lot to like about the Kled's possession. The only reason why I'm putting it in niche interactions is because you're forced to remount, which honestly is the only champion in the game that I can think of that you're forced to do some kind of other animation before you're able to play the champion. So, all right, Kog'Maw, I'm putting him in bad possessions. Now, there just really is nothing to like about Kog'Maw. Even if Kog'Maw is fed, a lot of the time you're just gonna pick up Kog'Maw's body and then get immediately one shot. Unless you can flash out, you have no mobility, you're squishy as hell. There's not really anything special about Kog'Maw other than the fact that, like, if you can get a free ult by taking his possession, go for it. Otherwise, like, he's definitely one of the champions I would consider not taking the possession of, which definitely sucks, but you know what? Kog'Maw, he's just kind of ass. All right, K'Sante, strong possession if you're skilled. K'Sante, literally one of the most broken, despicable, disgusting, nasty motherfucking champs ever existed. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Showmaker went light on the description for K'Sante, but because of that, you know, the best thing about Viego is when you're versus a champion that is absolutely straight from hell, is that you get to play as them sometimes. So if you know what you're doing, if you know how to, like, mess with his dashes, and you know, you're just able to get his Q3, there is a lot to like about K'Sante, and you know, he's very tanky, good mobility, good CC, great champion, but I hate playing against him, but I can't deny he is a good damn possession. I'm gonna put LeBlanc in strong possessions if skilled. I was gonna maybe consider putting her in best possessions, but LeBlanc isn't an easy champion, and I don't think your average player can just take over LeBlanc and get a lot of value out of her. However, her tether mechanic works similar to Karma, so what you can do is you can now you can QW somebody to get the burst off, then you can throw your E on them to tether them, and then ult as Viego and, you know, get LeBlanc's tether to stun them. She also has the ability to escape very easily. As you guys know, LeBlanc's W is a great escape tool and also a great engage tool, so you also get her passive too, so if you pick up her body and then get bursted, you can go invisible for a short period of time. So I like LeBlanc a lot. I think her possession is very, very strong. It looks like we're filling up this tier now because strong possessions of skill with champion. Lee Sin is definitely one of those. Lee Sin is arguably one of the harder champions in the game. Definitely one of the hardest junglers for sure. But his possession is very, very strong because Lee Sin has a shield, lifesteal, mobility on 2 different abilities. He has a slow. He's also generally pretty tanky, as well as doing a lot of damage. So Lee Sin is just a great possession. If you know what you're doing, if you can at least hit your Q, if you can at least do potentially a little ward jump. The thing is, when I versus Lee Sin, I always keep my wards instead of swapping to sweeper, so that, you know, if I take his possession, I can do a little ward jump action. Little tip right there for versing Lee Sin. But if you're good with Lee Sin, you will get a lot of value out of it. All right, next top tier possession is Leona. I think it's pretty straightforward. Leona's just good in the way that a lot of the champs up here are good. You have her shield, which gives you a ton of damage reduction. You have her Q, which you can actually use multiple times in the duration of a possession because it's such a short cooldown. You have your E dash, which is also CC. So a lot of the time on Leona, what I'll do is I'll just do an EQ combo onto somebody, stun them, press my W, ult as Viego. You get to keep all of Leona's stats from her W shield as long as it's active. There's just nothing really wrong with Leona. I'm gonna put Lilia as a niche interaction. She's one of my favorite champions to possess, mostly just because I love playing Lilia. I mean, goddamn. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything more than that. She's one of my favorite champions to play. More than that, she has the niche interaction of if you get her passive stacks up, you get to keep the passive stacks at least until they fade, and then you ult as Viego. You'll be Barry Allen for a short period of time. I'm pretty sure that's how that works, unless they patched it. It definitely has worked in the most recent times that I can remember. All right, I'm gonna actually put Lissandra in one of the best possessions. The reason for that is she's just super versatile as a possession. I E into the enemy team as Lissandra, and I just get an AoE route that almost always just changes the fight. Lissandra's engage is so sick, and being able to E into the enemy team and get a massive AoE route is pretty top tier. The other thing is you also get access to Lissandra's passive, which is one of the stronger passives in the game, which gives you like the ice souls that chase around people after they die. Definitely really like Lissandra. Maybe best possessions is a little high for her. Every time I've taken Lissandra's possession, it has just been a top tier experience, so I don't regret putting her this high. Maybe some people will think it's too high, but I do not. All right, Lucian is another ADC that I'm going to put in strong possessions of skilled. Lucian is arguably the best ADC of all of the ones up here. I think he is just so immediately useful, especially if you already have Conqueror's stack. And if you are able to do his combos super fast, you can basically get 6 of his autos off in less than 2 seconds, and you're able to just get so much burst off. Lucian, if played well, is one of like the highest damage champs in a short period of time. Because of that, I think he just deserves to be this high on the list for sure. Lulu, I'm going to put her as a good possession. Honestly, Lulu is a really strong champ. You can make an argument for her potentially being higher. You take over her possession and you can polymorph somebody into ulting them. You have a shield for yourself. You can increase your movement speed and give yourself the attack speed with her W if that's what you want to do. You definitely have a lot of ways that you can play Lulu when you take over her possession. The only reason I'm not going to put her higher is just because, you know, you are a support, you are squishy, and a lot of the time when you kill the support first, you take over their possession, you could get jumped on by the enemy team, and it's not like she has a lot of mobility or dashes or anything, so you are quite vulnerable. However, I do think her abilities are super strong in, you know, a short span of time. Lux, honestly, I'm going to put her in good possessions as well. She has a shield. She also has a long-range route. You can use it in melee range if you need to. You can use it to chase somebody who's running away after your possession. You also have pretty good damage if you're able to land your E and an auto attack. Obviously, she is not higher because of the same reason as Lulu. She's squishy and obviously can be very easily one-shot. But, you know, just don't get one-shot. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. All right, Malphite. You know, I think I'm gonna put Malphite up in best possessions. Lots of very obvious reasons why Malphite's good. You're obviously insanely tanky. It's almost impossible to die as Malphite. Even if he's AP, the possession is still strong. He gets his passive shield right away as soon as you take the possession. So the shield that Malphite gets, you get it right away. If you leave the possession without Malphite ever losing his shield, you'll get to keep it as Viego too, which is pretty chill. His Q allows you to slow a target and chase after them with a lot of movement speed, so it's pretty easy to follow up. His E reduces attack speed like a crazy amount, and the other thing that's cool is you can press his W, which gives him like the AoE cleave on his auto attacks. You can press W, ult as Viego, and still have the AoE cleave as Viego. So yeah, I mean, just like a ton of things to like about Malphite's possession. For the most part, if you're possessing a champion that's tanky, you are going to get a ton of value out of it. All right, Malzahar, I will say, is maybe a little bit of a niche champion, mostly just because you always guaranteed get his passive on possession. So he's kind of like Annie, how she just guaranteed gets her stun as soon as you take the possession. Malzahar always gets his passive, which is the damage reduction and CC immune. And because of that, it's a pretty niche interaction where, like, you know, a lot of the times you might not want to pick up a mage's body in the middle of a team fight, but with Malzahar, it's not that bad because it's very difficult to get immediately one shot. Malzahar is a pretty good possession because he has his AoE silence. All right, Maokai. I think you could genuinely make an argument that Maokai is just the best possession in the game. He has a point-and-click route that dashes you to them, which is already amazing. His passive is a heal, and he also has additional CC where you can knock them back. So really the combo on Maokai, you W onto whoever you want to kill, then you Q them, and whatever direction they fly, you Viego ult on top of them, and then pretty much guaranteed kill. I can't really think of a champion that is easier to pull off than Maokai. He is so strong, so broken, and even though I hate playing against him right now, he is an absolute fantastic possession. Alright, I'm gonna also put Master Yi in best possessions. The main reasons why I'm putting Master Yi high is because, for example, his W is just something that, let's say you kill Master Yi and you're in the thick of danger, you can just press W and probably survive or at least tank a lot of damage. You have Master Yi's Q to follow or chase a target if you want. The ability to just immediately dash onto somebody after taking possession and do a shit ton of damage is very good. The other thing is Master Yi's E, which empowers his auto attacks. What you can do is you can press E on Master Yi and then ult and go back to Viego form, and then Viego now has Master Yi's E on top of all of his abilities, so, you know, that interaction is super, super strong. I would rate Master Yi very, very high. Melio. So Melio, you can make the argument Melio's average, but I'm actually going to put Melio in niche. The reason why Melio's niche is because of Melio's W, which increases your auto attack range. I think that Melio being able to just take the possession, shield yourself, drop the W, and then the W remains, obviously, for the rest of its duration. So what I do is I just take Melio's possession, I E myself, press W, and then I go back to Viego's form, and then now I get to play Viego with increased auto range, and also it's good for the rest of my team. You know, if I've got auto attackers that are near me, and they want to get empowered by Melio as well. So I think Melio is actually a pretty good, strong, niche little champion. I'm going to put Miss Fortune in good. Miss Fortune has her AoE slow, plus her movement speed, and very quick, bursty AD damage. So you don't really have to stay as Miss Fortune very long. Just getting off her combo, pressing her W, and then ulting back to Viego is very good. Mordekaiser, honestly, I don't think he's a top tier possession, and he's also not very difficult, so I'm just gonna put him in good possession. Mordekaiser is probably one of the better of the people in the good possessions. He's a champion that I would say maybe you stay playing Mordekaiser for quite some time. Like, you don't necessarily want ult out of Mordekaiser's body right away because he's just such like a strong champion in melee. Also, you know, his W is very strong too. You can get a big shield, you can get a big heal. I like Mordekaiser a lot. You can make the argument maybe he's higher. I'm going to put him down here in good possession though, because I don't think he's as strong as Darius's possession is, but honestly they are pretty similar. I just think Darius's is a little bit stronger. They're pretty close though. They're pretty close in power. I would say Morgana is honestly one of the best possessions. She's basically just a better version of Lux because your root is absolutely devastating. If you hit it, it basically locks someone down for the next 15 years, prison style. But what really makes Morgana one of the best possessions is very obviously her black shield, because what you can do is you can black shield yourself and then immediately ult back as Viego, and now you're just immune to CC for as long as that black shield is on, which Viego's biggest weakness in this entire game is CC. Being able to put black shield on yourself and then go back to Viego form is incredibly strong. You hit someone with your root, you black shield yourself, you get the kill, and no one is stopping you. So I think Morgana is one of the better possessions. I'm gonna put Nefiri in good possessions. I actually think Nefiri would be one of the best possessions, but Nefiri is actually currently bugged with Viego. There's an interaction where if you W onto somebody, which is where Nefiri like targets a champion and then dashes to them. If you try to dash to somebody and then ult on Viego before your dash hits, what unfortunately happens is that you will literally just ult in the complete wrong direction. It happened to me the other day on stream where I was trying to W onto somebody and then combo with my ult, and what ended up happening was my ult just flew in the opposite direction and I landed nowhere near. And because of that, I think Nefiri's a little bugged. Also, unfortunately, Nefiri's not that popular of a champion, so bugs like that unfortunately go unnoticed and probably will be in the game for a while. So if that wasn't the case, I think Nefiri is one of the better possessions because you get access to her dogs. Actually, I'm going to put her in niche interactions because you get to keep Nefiri's dogs after the possession, and you have two dashes, and honestly, I like Nefiri a lot. I just wish it wasn't bugged. All right, I'm going to put Nami in good possessions. In my experience, Nami's bubble is one of the hardest kill shots to hit. And a lot of the time, I kind of find myself inting when I just try to throw Nami's bubble. But she's still a good possession because she has a self-heal that also does damage. And then her E is something you can put your E on yourself, then just ult back to Viego. And then because of that, you have extra burst damage because Nami's E obviously empowers your abilities and auto attacks. Nasus, you know, this honestly might seem crazy, but I'm going to put him in best possessions because Nasus's Wither is one of the most devastating abilities to have be placed on you. If you point and click Wither on somebody, they basically aren't getting away from you. The other thing is that Nasus, you can just press W on a priority target, throw your E down. Nasus's E reduces armor. So then it's almost guaranteed that you're going to kill that target because you reduce their armor, you slowed them, you ult on top of them as Viego. Where are they going to go? Even if they're tanky, their armor's reduced, they're slowed, they're just gonna get killed by you. And that is just the nature of Nasus. Nautilus, absolutely fantastic possession. One of my favorite, maybe even top 5. I'm gonna put Nautilus in best possessions instead of in strong possessions. I know I put Blitzcrank in strong possessions, but Blitzcrank's hook is a lot harder to hit than Nautilus's hook because, listen, we all know that Nautilus' hook is the fattest thing in the world. It hits things that it absolutely shouldn't. It's really, really hard to fuck up Nautilus. Also, you don't even have to press abilities to root somebody with your auto attacks. You just literally walk up to them. You get a shield, you get a slow, you have a Q that is absolutely devastating and hooks people in. I think Nautilus is probably the best hook champion that you could pick up. Neeko, I'm going to put her in good. She has a root. She has her clone ability that temporarily makes you invisible, which is also really nice. I think that Neeko's very strong. I don't think there's anything wrong with her. I don't think she's amazing. You know, if you miss your E, she kind of is just like a meh possession. I don't really see myself playing Neeko longer than just like a couple seconds just to try to, you know, hit the root and then ult immediately. I think Neeko's good. I don't mind playing her at all. All right, Nidalee. I'm going to put Nidalee in average. I think Nidalee's range form is just straight up bad. Part of what makes Nidalee's range form good is that you can hit a spear and then follow it up with your empowered cougar form, but obviously you can't combo the two because you can't swap forms. So I think Nidalee's possession in range form is just ass, but the thing is her cougar form is actually pretty good because you still have like a mini dash, you have her EQ, which is good burst, and Nidalee's also pretty good right now, so I think her cougar form is good. I think her range form is bad, so I'm just going to put her in average. Nilah, very good possession. I'm going to put her in niche, though, mostly because of her W. The other thing about Nilah that is really interesting is her XP passive. Let's say, for example, that you kill a Nilah bot lane and then you want to push the wave. It's best to push the wave as Nilah so that you can get the increase XP to give to your ADC, or, you know, whoever's bot lane with you. You can give that to yourself and to your ADC. So there's a little niche interaction with her XP, as well as the fact that when you activate her W, it makes you immune to auto attacks, and that remains on you even after you return back to Viego, as long as the effect is still active. So Nilah is really strong in a lot of different ways. She has 2 dashes, which, you know, I think at this point you guys have realized I love dashes. Dashes are incredible on Viego. Any champion with a dash is going to be pretty good. Nunu, I'll put him as good. I think that Nunu's possession is very interesting because a lot of the time you can't get a full snowball off, because I'm pretty sure Nunu's snowball lasts for 10 seconds and Viego's possession lasts for 10 seconds. So unless you press W right away, you will usually fall out of Nunu's possession before your W gets all the way off. But Nunu's still a good possession because let's say that you're low, you kill Nunu, you take his possession, you eat a minion, you're full health. Like, that's just how it goes. I'm going to put Nocturne in niche. Very similar to Karma and LeBlanc, his fear mechanic is a tether. So you press your fear on top of somebody and it will fear them even if you return back to Viego's form. So I Q them, so I get the movement speed trail towards them. Then I press my E, and then I ult on top of them. So even if they flash or dash away, I still manage to fear them. Obviously, Nocturne also has a spell shield, so that's very awesome. Like, you take his possession, someone tries to, you know, CC you or whatever, you can spell shield that right away. Olaf, I'm going to put this as best possessions. Olaf is just honestly straight up one of the most insane, like, melee champions that you could possibly have. As you guys know, if Olaf is on top of you and you can't kite him, he's probably going to beat the shit out of you. His Q reduces armor, his W gives him a shield and lifesteal and attack speed. It just gives you so much. So what you can do on Olaf is you can just take his possession, throw a Q, press W, ult on Viego, and then you're just cracked out of your mind. They have reduced armor, and you have the steroid of Olaf's W. Orianna, I'm actually gonna put her as average. I like Orianna a lot personally. She's one of my favorite champions to play in, like, ARAM or whatever. But I think Orianna without her Shockwave is just kind of just a mid champion to begin with. I mean, you have your shield, you have like the slow and the movement speed on your W, but like I don't think it really matters that much. What you're realistically gonna do is just throw out your QW combo, maybe shield yourself, and then leave Orianna's possession. Nothing really special about it, just completely average across the board. Alright, Ornn. I'm gonna put Ornn as one of the best possessions. Ornn used to be literally one of the coolest possessions in the game because you used to be able to upgrade your teammates' items when you possessed Ornn. You can't do that anymore, unfortunately, but Ornn still is a very strong champion, and the way a lot of these champions are, he's exceptionally tanky. He's got CC, he's got dash, he's got damage. Ornn honestly is probably my favorite champion in the game to have on my team, but if he's not on my team, then I will kill him and I will play as him and I get to be the Ornn. So that is how I feel about Ornn. I think he's great. I think he's amazing. Pantheon, you know, Pantheon, one of the best possessions as well. The reason why Pantheon's so great is because when you take over his possession, you immediately spawn with all 5 of his stacks. So you either get an empowered Q, W, or E. In my opinion, you should use your empowered W because then you get like the 3 auto attacks stacks back. So I think that Pantheon is just like, he's immediately a very, very useful champion when you take his possession because you have the point and click stun into the burst. You also, you know, if you're in danger, you can use Pantheon's E, you know, to avoid getting bursted. Poppy, you know, we're starting to get to some real good ones because Poppy is also one of the best. She is just an absolute lockdown artist. She's maybe one of the best lockdown champions of the game. You take her possession, you just chase after whoever you want to kill, you E onto them, even if you don't pin them against the wall, you EQ on top of them, ult, and you're probably going to one-shot somebody. Also, her W is really strong if you know what you're doing. If you manage to just run into somebody with your W active, pin them against the wall, you're probably going to kill them. At this point, if you made it this far into the tier list, thank you for being here, of course. But I think you're able to probably start to anticipate where champions are going to go on this tier list because, let's be real, most of the champions and the best possessions are pretty simple, pretty tanky, tons of CC, good mobility. You know, lots of good things going on. All right, Pyke, I'm gonna put strong if skilled. He's probably the most difficult of the hook champions. Maybe Thresh is more difficult, but he's still extremely strong. I think that Pyke is definitely one of the best possessions in the game if you're good at him, because he's just so slippery. One of my favorite interactions on Pyke is to E, and then Viego will pass that person, and then Pyke's E will stun them. And it's basically just like Pyke's normal combo, where he E's and then ults past, but it's just a little bit easier to pull off. It's one of my favorite interactions in the game. You know, his W also heals him, so you can E out if you take a lot of damage upon taking the possession. Heal that back, you can, you know, hit your hook. There's a lot of things you can do. If you know what you're doing on Pyke, obviously you know what I'm talking about. You will very easily be able to make something happen. Qiyana, I'm going to put her also in strong possessions of skilled. Qiyana is one of the most difficult champions in the game. Obviously need to be very quick and have great knowledge of her combos and when to use them. You have her Q, which, you know, has camouflage and invisibility. You have a root if she's got dashes, she's got tons of burst and damage and setup for yourself. So I like Qiyana a lot. You know, I'm not the greatest Qiyana player of all time, but I know her well enough to be able to use her. And if you are similar to me in that regard, then you'll be able to play Qiyana just fine, and she'll be a very strong possession. Quinn, I'm going to put Quinn as just good. Honestly, Quinn is a pretty underrated champion right now. I think she's very strong, but obviously not a lot of people play Quinn. The thing that's good about her is that you have her W, which reveals a large location around. So let's say you gank top, you kill Quinn, and then you can just press W to see if like the jungler's around trying to sneak a kill. Other than that, you know, her E is like a dash onto somebody that briefly CCs them. Her Q blind is a very powerful tool as well. Rakan, I'm going to put as one of the best possessions. His mobility, his CC, the fact that you can double shield, you can slip in and out with your E and your W, you can set yourself up super easily. You can get out if you need to, and he's very self-sufficient, very risk-free. It's very difficult to get yourself killed while playing Rakan. As much as I hate Rammus, I gotta say, I would say he's a good possession. You know what, the more I think about it, the more I think Rammus is actually a top tier possession. It's just like playing against Rammus as a Viego player just brings me so much pain. Giving Rammus any kind of recognition is just very difficult and painful for me. But you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, he really has everything you need. He has the ability to chase after people, lock them down with point and click CC. He's tanky as hell. What are you gonna do to him? You're gonna do absolutely nothing. And Rammus, because of that, is a great possession. Rek'Sai, I'm gonna put Rek'Sai as average. Even though Rek'Sai does have a lot of things that would make other champions a good possession, you don't immediately get value out of Rek'Sai. What you have to do is that you have to burrow yourself after taking a possession, and then you have to E on to somebody, and then you have to unburrow yourself, which honestly can be easily stopped if they have any kind of CC. Rel, surprise, surprise, a tank engaged champion is gonna be one of the best possessions. I feel like a broken record at this point, but the reason why it's good, she has tons of CC to set up for herself. She has movement speed on her E. She has the ability to lock somebody down with her stun and to knock up. She has a shield. You set yourself up for your own success, just like a lot of the champs on this list. I'm going to put Renata in niche interactions. The reason why Renata is in niche interactions is because of her W. I think this is one of my favorite interactions in the game, which is where you take over Renata's body, and then you press Renata's W on yourself, and then you go back to Viego form, and then you die, and then you kill the person, and then you get all your health back. That is what I absolutely fucking love about Renata. Hey, playing against her, because Renata might genuinely be one of the most natural counters to Viego in the entire game, because she basically has an anti-reset mechanic on a 20-second cooldown. No worries at all, I'm not salty, but when you get to use that anti-reset mechanic on yourself after killing Renata, it is a top tier possession. So Renekton, I'm gonna put Renekton in strong possessions of skilled. I don't think Renekton's like that difficult of a champion, to be honest. He does have some niche interactions, like, you know, making sure you know what to spend your Fury on. Let's say you want to get a double dash, so you make sure you dash through minions so that you can like chase after someone, for example. Or if you want to get like the empowered stun, you know, whatever you want to do in a team fight, or whatever you need to do in a team fight, does require some knowledge of Renekton. But overall, he's just extremely strong. He's got point click CC, he's got a heal on his Q, he's got double dash, he's tanky. What else is there to say about Renekton? Rengar, strong possession if skilled. Even though Rengar is one of the most broken champions of the game, I don't even care what his win rate is right now. I think that Rengar is just one of the most despicable champions. The two counters to an assassin is CC and burst. Rengar has a single ability that cleanses CC and heals back burst. So it's just like, he's just like an assassin with very little weaknesses. The good thing about Rengar is that you also get those things. With Rengar, if you know what you're doing, if you know how to manage his passive stacks, if you know what to spend them on, if you know when it's better to, you know, double Q. Or one thing I will say about Rengar is, even though I think he's broken, he is pretty difficult to play at a high level. Riven, also kind of the same thing. Riven is a very, very strong champion, lots of dashes, good CC, knock up plus stun, plus shield, plus mobility, but she's also one of the more difficult champions of the game. Pretty much nobody but One Tricks plays Riven, so if you know what you're doing on Riven, you will be able to cook. Otherwise, you are going to struggle, and that is just the nature of Riven. Rumble, I'm gonna put him in good possessions. I don't think Rumble is like anything too crazy. I think he's better than the average ones here, but for the most part, what you're gonna do on Rumble is you're just gonna shield yourself. You're gonna maybe use both your harpoons to slow them, maybe do a little bit of burning, but you're probably not gonna play Rumble very long. Samira, strong possession of skilled. I don't think Samira's like crazy difficult or anything, but you know, she does have the reset mechanics, and Samira's one of those champions that you actually might want to play for quite some time, especially if you get like instant resets. Like, there's definitely plenty of times where I just immediately kill someone after taking Samira's possession, and then follow up with another E on top of the next target I'm chasing. Also, you get access to like the wind wall mechanic, so being able to use that on the right spells, take some skill. Sejuani, I wonder where. Yeah, she's going into top possessions. Like, do I even need to explain why? She's literally the same as 80% of the champions that I have put in the best possessions. She's got dash, she's tankiness, she's got CC, she's got tons of setup. Senna, you know what? I am gonna put Senna in prepare to int. Now, I actually think that Senna is a good possession, but I will explain myself. I will put Senna in prepare to int because even though she's got very long range, she's got a Q heal, she's got good damage, and she has her W, which, you know, you can root somebody and set yourself up. The reality of Senna is she is literally one of the squishiest champs in the game, and I'm sure you guys have all had on your team a 15 death Senna, but there is literally no champion in the entire game that I have inted on more than Senna. I kill Senna, I pick up her possession thinking I'm about to cook, and I literally get one shot by a single ability from some champion off my screen. Seraphine, I actually think Seraphine's one of the best enchanter possessions in the game. The thing I really like about her is that you get her encore stacks immediately. So basically you can take her possession and immediately choose, do you want to do the double E to root somebody? Do you want to do the double W? You can go for the double Q for just the extra damage. There's a lot of options with her, and they're all good. Seraphine is a pretty safe possession because, like I said, if you're in danger, you can just use the empowered W, and that will usually keep you alive. Set, I'm going to put in best possessions. I think that even though Set can get kited pretty easily, similar to Darius, when you take over Set, the enemy team is going to want to run away from you because there's just no way that they're going to be able to fight you when you take over his possession, because if you get your fully stacked grit on your W, it's going to be absolutely devastating. You have the Q movement speed to chase after people, you have your E to like slam them in, and if you know what you're doing on Set, which isn't very difficult, let's be real, Set is pretty much just as strong as Darius in terms of his possession. Shaco, honestly, I will also say Shaco is one of the best possessions. Shaco's possession is insanely strong because you can immediately Q, go invisible, you can run away, guaranteed live, you can go in and surprise somebody, and then obviously if you drop a box as well, that can be quite devastating depending on how well it's placed. But in my experience, I think that Shaco is one of the better possessions because, you know, it's just so easy to pull off what you need to pull off. You literally just press Q, and then you're invisible, and then, like, do you want to go into the backline, one-shot their ADC? Do you want to run away? You can do whatever. Shen, I'm actually going to put Shen in a strong position if skilled. I don't think Shen is a very difficult champion, but he is a little bit intricate. For example, you know, like his taunt flash is something that you probably need to know how to do. Also, make sure that you time his auto attack field properly is going to be very valuable for you. But he's got shield, he's got CC, he's got surprisingly really high damage. And he's also got the ability to block auto attacks, which is insanely good versus a bunch of teams. Shyvana, I'm going to put Shyvana in average. I don't think Shyvana is a bad possession because, you know, you get movement speed on her W, and you can mark people with her E, which, you know, you can fully proc the E Viego form or in Shyvana form or whatever. But Shyvana's main strength is when she's in dragon form, which you obviously do not get access to as Viego. So base Shyvana form is pretty bad, but it's just average. You know, there's nothing special about it. It's not horrible, but it is average. Singed, while one of my favorite possessions, I can't put it higher than good. Obviously, you get movement speed from his passive, as well as his W grounds, which is really strong. But realistically, all you'll do on Singed is just run up to somebody, flip them, and then ult them on Viego. You're not going to play Singed for very long. You're just going to flip like Burger and go next. Sion, I'm going to put in best possessions as well. The thing about Sion that's super awesome is, like, obviously he's insanely tanky. If you do happen to die, you get his passive, which is just always insanely strong. His shield is insane. His Q is one of the strongest CC abilities in the game if you can actually fully channel it. And you also just have a nice, easy slow on his E. I think Sion's really strong. It's pretty easy to get value out of him. Worst case scenario, you just press W and then you ult and you have a gigantic shield. Other than that, Sion just has a lot of tools to really set up amazing possessions. Sivir, I'm going to put her in average. There's absolutely no reason to play as Sivir other than the fact that you're just going to spell shield, I guess. You like pick up Sivir's body, you press her spell shield, which is cool. Maybe get a little bit of damage, might as well just throw her Q for fun, and then you're just going to use her as a free ult. I don't think she's a bad possession because unlike Kog'Maw, you actually have a tool to survive, which is your spell shield. Other than that, though, there's not really much reason to play as Sivir. Now, literally no one plays this champion, but he is actually a very good possession. He's tanky. He has a shield that gives him movement speed and a shield. His W gives him shield and a movement speed, and his E is one of the better CC setups in the game because you can hit it on multiple people, but it's a range stun mark that you can then, you know, just walk up and auto attack, and then that sets up your ult possession. You're probably not going to play this Gunner for very long. Definitely not going to play him for very long, but he has enough tools in his kit that put him as one of the better possessions. Okay, so the thing with Sona is she is my least favorite champion in the game to have on my team. I absolutely hate Sona. She's basically Yumi that isn't attached. However, her possession is actually quite good because you are able to, very similar to Seraphine, you're able to take her possession, immediately heal yourself, give yourself movement speed. Maybe you can literally just like spam her abilities like a piano. You don't even have to know what you're doing, and then immediately ult, and you'll have gone value out of her. Soraka, I'm gonna put her in good possession. Soraka, you could theoretically play her for the entire duration of the possession, and you know, just give all your health away to heal somebody, or whatever you want to do. Usually on Soraka, what I just do is I try to hit someone with my Q, get the healing, and then just throw out my silence, and then ult immediately. You know, listen, I'm playing Viego. I'm not locking in Soraka. I'm not giving my shield to anyone because I don't want my health to go down. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to heal myself with the Q, throw down a silence, set up my possession, and then go for the kill. Swain, I'm going to put him as good as well. I think Swain could arguably be pretty average because if you miss your E, there's honestly not really any reason to play as Swain. However, his E is very strong, especially if you hit your E on multiple targets and then pull them into your Swain W, which will heal you. That will be great. A lot of people ask if you keep Swain's health stacks. You do not. That matters, but he is still a very good champion because of the CC that he has if you do manage to hit your E, as well as the fact that his W will heal you if you manage to hit that as well. Sylas, absolutely one of the best possessions in the game. Top 5, arguably top 1. If you know what you're doing, honestly, you can make the argument that he's more of a strong possession of skilled, but his W is just one of the absolute best things in the game. It doesn't matter if you have 5 HP, you just pick up Sylas, you press W, you heal a bunch of health, you have a dash. Sylas has all the tools you could possibly want. I feel like I don't really even need to elaborate on this one. You guys can just imagine picking up Sylas and let's just say you're gonna fucking cook. Syndra, I think that Syndra is a good possession just purely because of her EQ. You're honestly not going to play a Syndra for very long, but her EQ is a very, very strong tool. Very long range stun. Tahm Kench. I think Tahm Kench is a top tier possession. Surprise, surprise. He is a tank with CC, some mobility, a shield. What else do you need? You know he has his E shield, which is very strong. He's got his tongue, which does good damage. That slows them. If you get multiple auto attacks off, you can stun them. You can knock them up. Surprise, surprise. A tank is on top. Taliyah, I'm going to say Taliyah is a strong possession of skilled. A lot of people might automatically think that Taliyah maybe shouldn't be this high, but the reality is that Taliyah is one of the absolute best control mages in the game if you hit your spells. Her E is just complete zone control. Especially if the enemy team is mobile, it really fucks them up. And if you know how to do the WE combo on Taliyah, you can pretty much one-shot someone or just absolutely decimate somebody that you throw into the team. Talon, I think Talon is a strong possession of skilled. I think it's hard to put him in best possessions because, I mean, his combo isn't very difficult or anything. It's just that, you know, you don't have your ult where you go invisible like Talon normally does, so the combo is a little bit less safe. But the thing that makes Talon a strong possession is obviously his E. Even if you don't use any other spell, you can take Talon's possession and just E across the entire map, go for camps, go for bot lane, chase after a kill, whatever you want to do. Talon's ability to E over walls is something that you can get an exceptional amount of value out of. Alright, I think Tarek is a top tier possession, one of the best possessions in the game, but I'm going to put him in niche interactions because the thing that I do on Tarek that honestly is one of the best interactions in the game for Viego, in my opinion, is you put your E on yourself, which is his stun. And obviously, you know, his stun is delayed. It has like a line that it's going to stun in. What you do is you press the stun on yourself, and then you ult at the person you're trying to stun, and the stun will follow you and stun them at a range. So that's the interaction. It's kind of the way Tarek Mastery used to work, except you just do all the work yourself. So it's one of my favorite interactions. Teemo, I'm gonna be honest. Teemo is like kind of an average possession. Like if you kill Teemo and you're fighting an auto attack champion, I would say Teemo's possession can be good because, you know, obviously you have the blind. But outside of that, you're really not going to be playing Teemo very long. Realistically, what you'll do is you'll just pick up Teemo's possession, you'll Q someone, you'll press W for the movement speed, and then you'll ult right away. Brush, I'm going to put him in strong possession of skilled. I think arguably the hardest hook champion, either him or Pyke. But, you know, I've already explained why hook champions are very good, so I think at this point you understand that if you hit the hook, it's absolutely devastating. If you miss the hook, it sucks. Thresh also has his lantern, which is an amazing tool regardless of how long you're playing him. And Flay, also if you know how to hit the Flay, it is very devastating to the enemy team. So Thresh, very strong champion, but you gotta know what you're doing. Tristana, God, I love Tristana. You know what? I think I'm going to put Tristana in strong possession of skilled. I don't think Tristana is difficult at all, but you do need to have a pretty good idea of what you're doing if you're going to just jump into the enemy team. A lot of Tristana players will literally run it down by just Wing into the enemy team and getting themselves killed. So us as Viego players, we need to try to have a jungle mind and not an ADC brain. Because, you know, you can definitely run it down very easily on Tristana. I think Trundle is strong. I don't think he's anything particularly special. I think that his W is really, really nice, even if you're not in Trundle. Trundle is not a great team fighter, so it just depends on what kind of fight you're in. I think he has potential to be strong. You know, his pillar is always very useful. His W is useful as well. But for the most part, I would say Trundle is just kind of a good to maybe average possession, but I'll put him in good because I think he's not too bad at all. Tryndamere, definitely better than Trundle, but not anything special either. Tryndamere doesn't spawn with full Fury. A lot of the value just comes into the fact that you can use your E dash to get on top of somebody. You can use your W slow to, you know, chase after someone if they're running. If you do manage to get some auto attacks in, you can use your Q to heal yourself. For the most part, I think that Tryndamere is just good. TF, I'm going to put him in strong possessions if skilled, because not that TF pulling out a gold card is that difficult, but listen, apparently it is very difficult because I swear the amount of times my TFs have ulted bot with a blue card is way higher than I would like to admit. So I think that if you're able to take over TF's body and on the fly whip out a gold card, no problem. It's basically one of the strongest point and click range CCs in the game. And that's honestly a big reason why TF is so strong right now. Twitch, I'm going to put him in niche interactions. The reason I'm going to put Twitch in niche interactions is because if you kill Twitch, take over his body, press Q, and then immediately ult, what'll happen is that you'll actually go invisible as Viego. Similar to, you know, how you'd be invisible at Twitch, but you'll be invisible as Viego. So there's the little niche interaction. Udyr is a very, very interesting one. Udyr's possession is theoretically pretty strong, but the thing is as you guys know, you get the ability upgrades that the person you killed had upgraded. So what that means is that right now in the current meta, a lot of Udyr mains are maxing their Phoenix form, which is their ultimate. When you take over Udyr's body, at least until late game, most of his abilities are going to be level 1. So the value that you get out of Udyr's possession is not as strong as it potentially could be. For example, if they were maxing their Tiger Stance, or if they were maxing Turtle, or whatever, because all the points are in the ultimate, which you obviously don't get as Viego. So Udyr's possession can be good still because, you know, you get the shield. In my opinion, what you should do on Udyr is you should either use the double bear stance or the double turtle stance, depending on whether you need shielding or CC immune. Urgot, I'm also going to put him in good. I don't think Urgot is like the most amazing possession. Basically what you're going to do is you're just going to try to E at someone, you're going to try to flip them, get the free shield, and then you're just going to ult. I don't think it's really worth most of the time unless the Urgot is really fed to stay in Urgot's form. I guess obviously if they're strong, you know, the possession will obviously be better. That's just kind of how it always works. But if you flip somebody and then you want to get all of Urgot's legs to explode before you leave the possession, feel free. You just have to read the situation, and Urgot's a pretty good possession. Varus, I'm also going to put Varus in a good possession. Varus is one of the stronger ADCs to pick up, even though he's immobile, because it's very easy for you to just get your 3 blighted stacks by auto-attacking and then WQ someone, and you just have a ton of burst because of that. A lot of ADCs, you know, they take some time to ramp up, or they need a bunch of auto-attacks to be useful. Varus really only needs 3 auto-attacks plus his WQ, and you get a lot of value out of him. Obviously, he's immobile, so he's not going to be any stronger than just being in good. However, he is still a pretty strong possession. Vayne, I'm going to put strong if skilled. Obviously, Vayne without her ult is, you know, not a top tier champion, but she still has a lot of tools that are good. She has the movement speed towards enemies. She has her dash. She has her true damage. There was once a game where I was playing against a 10 kill Cassante, and the only way I could kill him is by killing the Vayne on the enemy team, taking her possession, and then using Vayne to kill Cassante. But, you know, obviously that's a very niche scenario. However, her condemn is also super valuable if you manage to, you know, get a good condemn off. Viego, honestly, I'm going to put him in strong possessions of skilled. Literally, the only thing you will probably do on Viego is place your cage. But if you know how to place your cage, Vigo's cage is one of the best zoning tools in the game. So I'm pretty much putting him here, strong if skilled. The skill is the cage. If you land the cage, you can obviously, you know, you can do the WQ as well on Viego, which is great burst. Vel'Koz, I'm going to put him in good possession because, you know, obviously he has a knockup, which, you know, any mage with CC is going to at least be a decent possession. He also has a lot of burst damage, so you don't actually have to play as Vel'Koz very long. If you hit an EWQ, you instantly proc the true damage passive, and then you can just leave Vel'Koz's form. I think that, you know, Vel'Koz, obviously, you have to take his possession with a grain of salt because you have no mobility, and you can very easily get one shot. Vex, absolutely an S tier possession. The reason why a Vex is good is because on possession of Vex, you immediately get her fear. One of my favorite things to do is take Vex's possession and then flash W into the enemy team, fearing everyone, and then immediately ulting out. Vex having her fear on possession is very similar to Annie in the sense that you just immediately can get value out of it. Vi, I'm also going to put Vi in best possessions. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. She's got mobility, she's her CC on her Q, she's pretty tanky, she's got a shield, she's got a lot of things that most of the champions in the best possessions do have. And there's no reason to leave Vi out of that. Viego. Alright, so now we're going to move on to Victor. Good possession. I think Victor is honestly pretty close to average due to the fact that he has his gravitational field plus the shield on his Q. I think he is very good. Also, if the Victor's fed, you can absolutely one-shot somebody, control mage style. So, once again, Victor is one of my favorite champions to play in, like, ARAM or whatever. So I think pretty highly of him. At the end of the day, you're mostly just going to play around his gravitational field and then leave his possession. Vladimir's possession is an interesting one. I'm going to put it in niche, mostly not because he has any special interaction really, but I think his W is something that either absolutely S tier or not really useful at all. I think there's definitely a lot of times where I have been able to tower dive a Vladimir, grab his possession, and then press W before the last tower shot killed me, which makes his possession obviously amazing because, you know, I'm able to survive something I wouldn't otherwise be able to survive. But outside of his W, his possession isn't great because you're not going to be able to get your fully empowered suck because, you know, you have to suck 3 times in order to get the value out of it, which is just not going to happen in the time that you have. Volibear, absolute S tier possession. If you're able to point and click stun somebody in his E, you're just going to absolutely mess them up. No reason to put Volibear anywhere other than S tier. I think it's, you know, I think it's quite obvious at this point why a champion like Volibear would be up there. But yeah, he is definitely S tier. Warwick, The thing about Warwick is basically the same thing about Jax. You press your E, which activates your fear, and then if you switch back to Viego after a certain amount of time, his fear will go off, and then you'll be able to fear somebody even if you're not in Warwick's form anymore, which makes him really strong. The other niche interaction is that you can stay in Warwick's form and chase after someone with a blood trail, which allows you to get around the map a little bit faster, for example, if somebody is low. Warwick, very strong possession, but definitely more niche than anything. Wukong, I'm going to put him in best possessions. He has his clone, which is just an absolutely strong, very safe ability to use. He has that, which is a dash. It can confuse the enemies, buy you time after a possession. He has his E, which dashes onto people and gives you attack speed, and his Q, which is good burst. So, it's very easy to just use this possession. Take Wukong's body, use the decoy, jump onto someone in the backline, do your EQ combo, and then ult back to Viego and finish them off. This is a very easy possession, very strong. Lots of ways you can make it work. Wukong, definitely a best possession. Xayah, I'm gonna put her in good. She's actually one of my favorite ADC possessions to play, mostly just because she's one of the few ADCs that actually has CC. And it's very satisfying to set up your feathers and pull them back, and people always get surprised by it when I take over Xayah's possession and then actually get the feather pull, even though it's not even difficult to do that, but people are always surprised by it. And she also has her W attack speed steroid, which even if you don't want to play as Xayah for very long, you can press her W and then ult back to Viego and get the attack speed steroid, which is great. Xerath, I'm going to put him in good possessions. He's very similar to Vel'Koz. Same reasons that Vel'Koz is here, same reason that Xerath is here. Has his stun, he's got his W slow, which is awesome, but you're very vulnerable, so he's not going to be, one of the top tier possessions. Still very, very valuable. Xin Zhao, he technically has a point and click CC knockup because, it's just off his auto attacks. He has a very, very long range dash if you hit your W, and even if you don't hit your W, you still have a pretty long range dash on his E, which gives him attack speed and allows him to stick onto targets. So Xin Zhao, very, very similar to Wukong in the sense that it's just a possession that allows you to chase after someone very easily and set up another kill. The only difference between him and Wukong is that Xin Zhao has a knockup. Alright, the Windshitter brothers. You know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. Yasuo, it is my favorite possession. People always ask me who my favorite possession is, who's the champion that I look forward to possessing the most. It is absolutely Yasuo. Now listen, I think I'm a good Yasuo player. I don't even know why. I just think I am. I love playing him. I always try to style, but even if you don't style, he's still strong. You have, on possession, you have his shield fully stacked. You have your wind wall, which is historically just one of the strongest non-ultimate abilities in the game. Plus, you have tons of mobility through minions. If you are able to get up his tornado, which you definitely should be able to, you have a knockup that if you know what you're doing on Yasuo, you can just absolutely make it work. Yone, I'm going to put him in niche interactions. He's good, very similar to Yasuo, but the way his E works is that right before it yanks you back, you can ult on Viego to get a little bit more duration out of the Yone E, and then it'll pull you back. So yeah, Yone has a very cool interaction with Viego's ult, and it's a little bit weird. You'll have to play around with it a few times before you really get used to it. Yorick, I'm gonna put him in average. Literally, the only thing good about Yorick's possession is his W, but even then, it's like not even that good. You probably won't be playing Yorick very long. You'll probably just maybe throw out your E to slow, and then your W to try to trap them. And then, if you do manage to successfully trap them, the possession's pretty good, but overall, Yorick's possession is pretty meh overall. Yuumi, bad possession. I think Yuumi is just very obviously not that good of a possession. The only thing good about Yuumi is that if you're able to take her possession and then attach to someone, you can maybe escape a fight. But then again, it's so easy to just like CC Yuumi out of a possession and one-shot her. Is this possession ever even good? Also, most of the time, like, Yuumi's the last to die in a fight, so it's like, what do you even do with this thing? Like, it just, for the most part, Yuumi is just pretty useless as a champion in general, but definitely as a possession too. Zac, probably top 5 possession in the entire game. He has everything that every other champion at this tier has, except for the fact that he also has a passive where if you get killed, you have the opportunity to get revived. So you do get Zach's passive similar to Anivia, except you're just an absolute beast. You have a dash that dashes halfway across the screen that knocks people up. You have healing. You have an additional stun that can stun multiple people by slamming them together. I think Zach's possession is definitely top 5 in the entire game. Zed, I'm going to put him strong if skilled with the champion. Yeah, I mean, I think this one is self-explanatory. Zed is a champion that absolutely fucking cooks if you're good at him. But, you know, you need to be able to play around your shadow. You need to be able to use your W properly. You need to be able to hit the double Q. Honestly, I don't think it's that difficult to do that. I think a lot of Zed's skill cap comes in when you factor in his ultimate as well. I think Zed is a very strong possession. Not that easy to use, but if you do know what you're doing, he will be very, very powerful. Zeri, I'm going to do a strong possession of skilled with the champion, because Zeri's ability to dash through terrain is exceptionally valuable, and one of my absolute favorite things to do on Zeri is just dash through to a fadeaway W, and after that I usually leave the possession. But her E through terrain is so powerful that I just have to put her in this tier, because it's one of the most powerful terrain passing abilities in the game. Ziggs, I'm going to put him in niche interactions. Really, the only value of a Ziggs possession is his satchel. You're not going to be wanting to sit there playing Ziggs throwing your spells, but you can obviously use his satchel to knock someone back into you, or potentially if you get the opportunity to use his possession on a turret, you can satchel the turret and blow it up under 30%. I think Ziggs has potential every now and then depending on how you play around his satchel, but for the most part, if I didn't put him in niche interactions, I'd probably put him in average. Zilean, I'm going to put him in good. Really, the only value of Zilean is the movement speed. You can try to throw your double bomb. Honestly, it is pretty difficult to hit double bomb. If you do hit it, obviously that's great. You should definitely try to throw the double bomb just because of how powerful it is. But in my opinion, the real value of Zilean is just in his movement speed and or slow. Speed yourself up, slow the person you're trying to kill. Similar to Nasus Wither, you just kill them immediately after. So Zoe, I'm going to put her in good. The thing is that Zoe is maybe one of the hardest champs in the game. Being able to pick up Zoe's possession even without her ult is going to be exceptionally difficult. The value of Zoe is obviously in her bubble. If you land a good bubble, she will be great. Also, potentially, if somebody flashes when you're playing Zoe, you get the ability to, like pick up their flash and kind of cook with that. But I will put her in good because if you are any good at her or you hit your bubble, her possession is quite good. And finally, I'm going to put Zyra. I'm going to put her in good. I don't think she has anything too special other than her root. Maybe you throw down some plants and try to hit someone at a range with your Q. But for the most part, when you take over Zyra's possession, you're just going to try to throw your E along with your seeds at the same time. And then that is going to be the value you get out of Zyra. It's a good possession, not anything too crazy. And that is going to be the completed tier list. So this video was way longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to take me an hour. It took me about over 3 hours to record. My voice is going to be dead for tomorrow, but I hope I was able to explain this well. I hope this video was entertaining. If you guys managed to watch the entire thing, you are an absolute real one. Hope you guys enjoy this different kind of content. I'm thinking about doing more things like this, so if you guys have some suggestions for Viego related content other than just posting gameplay from my stream, please feel free to let me know. I hope you guys agree with my list. If you don't agree with my list, let me know why. And if you made it this long, absolutely, shout out to you. Thank you for watching. Much love to all of you, and see you in the next video.